but I mean, the Jacob have I love, Esau have I hate.
Oh yes.
That's I mean, that's the number one scripture.
The black Hebrew Israelites,
Their
Esau,
gospel.
because Esau is the white man. You see, God hates the white man. I'm lying?
Yo, man.
That's what they believe.
Of course.
Yes.
Well, I don't know about now, but that's what they used to
That's what
believe.
they always
it
believed,
always
man.
changes. Their belief changes, but that was one of the main scripture that they would use in order to, justify hating the white man, because they say Esau is the white man, and the reason he was white is because he was born hairy and red. Fam, that's the breakdown, and that's what they believe, and based on that, they want to hate,
Right.
and they could say, yo, we could do whatever, we could hate, blah blah blah. From that one scripture, dog.
But what's
Yeah,
interesting,
go ahead.
that word hate there doesn't necessarily mean he hated or disliked him as an individual.
Right.
It was more so for his plan.
Exactly.
He did not. He hated. He didn't want to select him for his plan. He chose one over the other just for the purposes of his plan. And because if he hated him, because the word tells us that Esau had an abundance of riches and like he was blessed as his own little nation.
Right.
But if God hated him, do you think he would be? You know what I mean? Like people don't read into it, but
This is
that,
the thing,
You
like-
just, the way you explain it is in context.
yeah, the hate, people look at that hate and they're like, oh, how could God hate?
like even the
No.
term like was used like with like according to adoption, like so if like during that time if someone would adopt let's say there was two brothers and one would adopt one and leave the other, they would say that the father who did the adoption hated the other one.
Right.
That's how it was looked in society at that time. So when Paul is saying that, they kind of understand
Understood.
exactly
Right.
what he was talking about. It wasn't because he hated him, but like you said, because he didn't choose him, it was kind of like you.
It was
hated.
seemed as
it was
hate.
seen like you hated him.
Because I didn't choose
I
you
didn't
for
choose
the plan.
you for the plan. But when that's not what it is I have a plan. I'm choosing people to work this plan, and that's all it is. I have this plan, and I'm shaking and I'm moving, and I'm choosing people out of the world according to this plan, and that's it. But according to society, it would look like you hate him,
Right.
but that's
Yeah.
not what it is. And like I said, as we go further, like when we go to 14, and he really goes through like Pharaoh and Moses and all of that, it really shows. It goes into the whole thing is really showing the mercy of God.
And another thing with that, like we see with that whole hate, like that doesn't mean like what you guys explain very well, despise and actually hate.
That's not what that means.
Because we see Jesus use the same terminology when he says, "If you hate not your mother, father,
Right,
wife,
right.
children, then you can't be my disciple." So that's clearly showing that he's not telling you go hate your mother and father, but he says they got to be a preeminence of me before
Yeah.
all.
You have to
know?
choose.
And the same thing when he used with Jacob, with Rachel and Leah. He said he saw that what Leah was hated, and then he opened up her womb. It's it's just that because she was less loved than Rachel. It's not that he hated her.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And the other thing I wanted to bring out with like for example with Isaac and Ishmael, and to show that this is strictly dealing with a national election, and people confuse it like Hebrew Israelites saying that he hated Esau and this, and he hated Ishmael and this,
right,
and
right.
all these things. Like in Genesis 25:17 says, these were the years of the life of Ishmael, 137 years, and he breathed his last and died and was gathered to his people. And the things that when he says gathered to his people, that's only used. That terminology is only used for the saved. Where Abraham, when he died, said he was gathered to his people. Right? Sarah died. She was gathered to her people. And it talks about Ishmael being gathered to what people? He only had two people. It was Abraham and Hagar, because Hagar also, her heart was changed. So Abraham was saved, Hagar was saved, Ishmael is saved. I'm pretty sure that when we get to heaven, we're gonna see Ishmael and we're gonna see Hagar. You know what I'm saying? So the thing is that, so here he's not talking about salvation for Isaac and sending Ishmael to hell, because we know clearly this scripture, because it's only used 7 times, and those 7 times is specifically dealing with these people being gathered to the people is salvation. You know, them going to paradise, showing you that Ishmael was saved. So the thing is that this is specifically dealing with national election in order for Christ to be born from Disney. He had to be born of a nation. You know, he couldn't say, oh, Isaac and Ishmael, which one? You know, he couldn't be born out of 2 nations. He had to pick one. So God chose Isaac for Christ to come through. He could not come through Ishmael.
And yeah, I agree with you guys. The vehicle that he did that with was just his sovereignty. Yeah.
Yes.
Right. Another thing with the Jacob have I loved, Esau have I hated. It has a prophetic outlook on it with the 2 nations, because Paul actually referenced, that's a scripture in Malachi, where it talks about, you know, Esau becoming Edom. Eventually that nation became a enemy to Israel, and their destruction came. So even in that statement, it was almost, you know, prophetic, because he was referencing, you know, Malachi, you know, a prophecy. And just real quick, that where it says that the purpose of God according to election might stand, I read this thing. It said, his determination to distribute his favor according to his sovereign will.
Bless you.
Damn, I almost made the whole episode without sneezing. It means it's time to wrap it up. So his determination to distribute his favor according to his sovereign will and good pleasure. All right. Even in Israel, the Lord had a specific group within that nation that he was like, I chose you guys.